Welcome trainers and champions to a little bit of a discussion. Basically what I'm going to be talking about today is the rotation. So obviously we're getting a rotation much like what happens every year. What this means is that we're going to get a certain amount of TCG sets taken out of the standard format and put into expanded. Which means that we're going to lose a lot of cards that's going to be legal in tournaments, and we're just going to be talking about, you know, what we're going to be losing today. Obviously rotations I think going to get announced very soon, because obviously everyone needs to adjust, get ready and stuff like that. But I think everyone's kind of been predicting that it's just going to be Sword and Shield onwards once rotation happens. So that means, you know, things like Team Up, Unbroken Bonds, Unified Minds, and Cosmic Eclipse are all going to go. We're going to lose all of them. And just for that, I'm going to be going through what we're going to be losing in that aspect out of all of these sets. These are going to be cards that, you know, you've seen a lot in a lot of championship decks. You've seen a lot of in just decks in general that are just really good cards to have, and yada yada yada. If I've missed any, let me know. And whenever they bring it out, that seems to be different from what we're expecting. So this is all the tag team era. So this is all Team Up to Cosmic Eclipse. If they somehow change it and say that it's something different, then we'll do an updated version. But if not, then this is going to be the video for that. So yeah, so let's get started. I'm going to start off with up top. This is kind of how the deck manager kind of sorted it out. I have no clue why they sorted it out like this, but we start things off with Licky Licky. Licky Licky has not been one of the most popular cards, but I feel like he's been kind of good because of his 3 colorless attack of Let's Go Crazy. You do a nice bit of damage, discard a random card from your opponent's hand, top deck, and an energy. Ultimate disruption, and I feel like this is really cool. The reason why I put this into consideration is because we've got things now like Power of Colorless Energy to boost up damage. Since it's a colorless Pokemon, we've had things like Welder to top it up. We've had a lot of, you know, Tapu Koko to charge it and all that type of stuff. And since it's triple colors, we've got triple Excel, all that type of good stuff. So I feel like it's a pretty decent card to use. It's very good in terms of disruption. I feel like it's pretty cool. So Licky Licky is obviously one of the first ones to go. Came out in Unified Minds. But yeah, I don't mind Licky Licky. I thought he was a decent card when we first saw him, and a lot of decks tried to use him. So yeah, that's actually such a shame. Next one we have is Pidgeotto. Pidgeotto was out in Team Up, so it's been out for a while. And it was a decent draw factor because of its ability. Once during your turn, you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck and put one of them into your hand and the other one at the bottom of your deck. This kind of worked a lot since we didn't have really a lot of options in terms of Pokemon for draw at the time. So Pidgeotto was a very good candidate at the time. So yeah, Pidgeotto was great. I don't mind Pidgeotto. It's a decent balanced-ish card. Next card was Silvally Gx. Came out in Cosmic Eclipse. This was kind of one of your draw engines. You draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. It wasn't the best attacker. It was more there for draw support, which I think is fantastic. Its GX attacks kind of got less used throughout time as time went by. But I feel like Silvally Gx was a fantastic card to use in terms of draw. I feel like he still is. Just until rotation comes out, I feel like he's still a very good candidate for draw. Next card we have is Porygon Z. Porygon Z came out in Unbroken Bonds, and I feel like this is kind of going to be a tough one to see go because of its amazing ability where it says, as often as you like during your turn, you may attach a special energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon. At first you would use this card with, say, something like Whimsicott GX. That would do an amazing amount of damage. I think some people now tech it with Shifu, I think. Because obviously VMAX, you've got the triple XL, you've got a bunch of, you know, rapid strike energy or single strike energy. You've got a bunch at your disposal. Porygon Z, yeah, it's a decent tech. I suppose stage 2 you don't really see it as much as often because it's stage 2. It's not exactly the easiest to get out. But once it's out, you can do a bunch with it. I think Porygon Z is such a big loss to take though. Next up we have Hoopa. Hoopa again came out in Team Up, and it was a decent card for dark decks for a while. You kind of see him running around a little bit here and there. But he's been not bad. Mainly for his first attack for 1 dark energy, where you search up 2 cards, put them into your hand. Basically, think of something like not Corviknight, Cramorant, and yeah, it's basically the same thing. Literally just find 2 cards, put them in your hand. But you'd normally see this in something like Eternatus. It's basically the dark version of Cramorant for Eternatus decks. But yeah, you kind of see him in Eternatus decks as like a Cramorant variant. So you don't really see much of him anymore. That's kind of like the only instance where you see Hoopa now. Most times you'd use Cramorant more because obviously you can use Cape of Toughness, which gives you 50 HP if you're a basic Pokemon that's not a GX, which Hoopa is. It's got high HP in general by like 10, but 10 can mean all the difference in a match. It's colorless, so it can tech into any deck. But yeah, so Hoopa has just been that Cramorant version for Eternatus, since you need dark type Pokemon for it to work. So it hasn't been too bad, but Hoopa was a nice ride while it lasted. Next up, you have Spiritomb. Spiritomb came up in Unbroken Bonds. I think this one's gonna hurt a lot of decks as well, because this Spiritomb has been coming in and out of the scene for ages, like for a very, very long time. Last time you saw a big impact from him is when he was with ADP. That was crazy. That was absolutely crazy, that deck. And it works with itself so well. So once during your turn, you may put 1 damage counter onto Pokemon, and it does a whole bunch of extra damage for each damage counter on him. And he's only got better as time gone by because of things like I said before, Cape of Toughness to give you 50 extra HP, which means more damage for you, which is fantastic. You've got things like Hiding Dark Energy to give you free retreat, so you're not stuck in the active. You've got a bunch of stuff. You'd mix it in with Jinx. Jinx would swap energy damage counters over, so you could just boost up 1 Spiritomb and just go completely ham. Spiritomb was a very, very good card, so I feel like it's going to be tough saying goodbye to him. Next up, we've got Umbreon and Darkrai. Umbreon and Darkrai was one of the poster tag team cards for Unified Minds. It's an amazing attacker. It does 150 to the active and 60 to a GX or EX on the bench, which I think is very, very cool. And for 1 colorless energy, your opponent can't do any trainer cards, but if you had 6 energy in total, 5 dark and 1 colorless, your opponent's active Pokemon will be knocked out. If you manage to pull this off, which it isn't actually hard to do, it was destructive. It was a destructive mid/late game card. It was completely destructive. I feel like it was awesome. Which goes on to my next point. Weavile. Weavile was one of the cards that was essential for dark decks beforehand. Nowadays, the best dark deck you have is Eternatus, so you don't really see Weavile as much. But before Eternatus, Weavile was pretty much in every single dark deck that you could possibly think of. Every single dark deck had a Weavile GX, because you could just move basic dark energy as much as you wanted. It was great. It was amazing. Which also works well with our next card that we're going to see, Incineroar. Incineroar came out in Team Up as well, and if you put 3 damage counters on him, you could get 3 Dark Energy cards and put it onto Incineroar. That protected with Weavile, you could pretty much spread anything, any energy, anywhere you wanted. It was insane. The closest that you've seen to Incineroar get used nowadays is Text for Mewtwo and Mew decks, because of its 3 colorless GX attack for 10 base, but does 50 extra for each damage counter, which racks up to a big amount of damage, considering that Mewtwo and Mew has higher HP in general than Incineroar. So that is great. That is such a brutal attack as well. Amazing late game, mid game attack. It's fantastic. Next one I feel like is going to be pretty much the biggest sting we're going to have, ADP. ADP, rejoice! Zacian decks are going to be a little bit more bearable, let's say. But yes, ADP is also going to go. Oh my gosh, it's been so long. This card has just destroyed the meta for so long. It's just been so brutal. Anyone that knows TCG knows that ADP has been so destructive. It knows what it does. It's just so brutal. 1 water, 1 steel, 1 colorless, 150, and attach 3 basic energy to any of your Pokemon any way that you like. And for 1 steel, you do 30 extra damage for the rest of the game. But if you have 1 water extra, you could take 1 extra prize for whenever you knock out your opponent's Pokemon. So 1 single prize Pokemon would turn into 2, a GX or a V would turn into 3, and a tag team or a VMAX would turn into 4. Every game would be so broken because of this GX attack, and it was insane, to the point where tournaments would happen where this card was banned. This card would be banned from certain tournaments because of how destructive it could be. Like, it's just insane. But we're finally losing it. I don't think we're ever going to see a card like this, not for a very, very long time. Considering that GXs are basically going after this rotation, we're not going to see anything close to this. The closest that we get is probably a Pokemon that would just take an extra prize on its own and wouldn't just reflect around the whole team. So I feel like this is going to hit Zacian decks a lot. This is going to hit actually quite a few decks that would tech in ADP if you want extra damage or anything like that, but especially Zacian. I feel like Zacian can be a lot more bearable now. Sure, he's still a bit overpowered and got a few tricks, but at least ADP is going to disappear after rotation. But my god, this deck was so brutal, and I'm pretty sure people who play Expanded would find amazing ways to make this deck work, to make this deck so broken, even more broken than what it already is. But my god, ADP, it's been real, it's been a challenge, you have been so great, and god, I hope you don't come back anytime soon. After that, we go into Whimsicott. Whimsicott we've not seen as much because fairy types are dropping off the map. Like we saw in the beginning of the Sword and Shield era, fairy types were going, as well as dragon. So that means for a while we're probably not going to see any dragon type or fairy type cards for probably an indefinite amount of time. But Whimsicott, I would argue, is probably the best fairy type that we still have. Mainly because of its ability, where it's a 50-50 chance to hit it. If you get heads, then you prevent the damage. If you get tails, then you get hit. Obviously, with things like Zacian, it's not the best card to have because obviously double damage, you just die on the spot. You would immediately die on the spot. Combine it with ADP, you're basically handing your opponent 3 prizes for no reason. Again, like I said before, Porygon Z worked well with Whimsicott because you just stack up a whole bunch of different energy and Whimsicott would just go completely ham. It was good when dragon types were a thing. It was a very annoying deck at the time as well, but it's obviously dropped down because obviously fairy types have been getting less and less since eventually we're kind of pushing them to Expanded. But after this rotation, yeah, I would say Whimsicott is probably the best fairy type we have, but it's still not that great. It's only got a mention because it's just the best fairy type we have. I gotta mention fairy types. After that, we have Flygon. Again, I feel like Flygon deserves a bit of credit because Flygon's been getting, I want to say, better since every set has been coming out. We've got things like B now to get extra energy attached. We have got a few things. You've got things like, I don't know, Colossal to reattach just 1 energy because it needs 3 fighting, but Colossal does a fighting and a fire. You've got a few more options for fighting type decks now, but I feel like Flygon came too little too late. If we had Flygon V, then I feel like this would be used a lot more, but since it's a GX, stage 2 GX at that, it's going to be a bit more complicated. Arguing with Incineroar, Incineroar is easier to get out because we have cards to find that. But Flygon, fighting types haven't really found much love until very lately. So if it came out a bit later on, then it would be fantastic. But unfortunately, I think Flygon came a bit too little too late. But it does get an honorable mention because Flygon is just an amazing card. If you ever get one, I'd suggest try and make a deck around Flygon. But other than that, it's been pretty good. Omastar from Team Up was next. It's been the best tech for Gengar and Mimikyu decks since the very beginning. It's just been it's been an amazing Halt deck as well. If you can find a way to make Omastar work, it is more brutal than what you'd expect, because as long as you have fewer Pokemon in play than your opponent, they can't play any item cards from their hand, which you think, oh well, that's a bit hard, you need Pokemon on the bench. And true, but there's ways around it. We've seen it get used with Gengar and Mimikyu, so there are ways to get around it. We've got things like, you know, the Fossil Lab Stadium to fish out Omanite straight away. You could do Rare Candy to an unidentified fossil to get Omastar straight away. There is a lot you could do, and I feel like it would be a shame to see Omastar go. I'd love to see another card like this come at some point in the future. I feel like this should come back. Next up, we have Cephalon. Cephalon came up in Unbroken Bonds. Unbroken Bonds actually came out with a lot of good fire-specific cards, but we'll get to those as time goes by. But Cephalon, we still see him here and there. He was fantastic at the beginning when he came out. Fireball Circus was just amazingly brutal, because at the time we had Unbroken Bond, we still had Dragon Majesty, which would give off a card called Fiery Flint, where you discard 2 cards from your hand, you get 4, that gives you 200 damage straight away. If you've already got 3 fire energy attached to the Cephalon, then you've obviously, you know, got your Fire Crystal that would get you 7, Giant Hearth would get you another 2. You'd basically, at the time of Cephalon's release, you would have untapped potential, completely untapped potential for fire energy and destructive damage. You could get rid of anyone that you want if you had the perfect cards in your hand. And I feel like if we still had Fiery Flint, it would have only got better as time went by. Having Heat Fire Energy to get extra HP would have been brutal. Burning Scarf could have been like a little cheeky burn damage afterwards. Something like Cape of Toughness would have made him even harder to knock out, giving him 170. It would have been so brutal if we still had Fiery Flynn. But of course, as time gone by, we saw less cards, and the Cephalon kind of dropped down to, I would say, mid-tier. It can still get a few cheeky wins, but it's not as good as it used to be. But it was good to see the Cephalon while it lasted. Charizard and Braixen from Cosmic Eclipse was actually kind of decent. You'd see them both teched in with, I think, Reshiram and Charizard decks a lot. Because it was just an amazing attacker. It was kind of that weird chunky fire tech, but we didn't mind it because we had things like Welder, which obviously paid the price very easily. Its GX attack paid for recycled energy very quickly, and also did Burning Confusion, which was also a great stalling technique. Or a little damage chip technique. I felt like Charizard and Braixen wasn't the best fire type tag team we had. But my god, it could be very useful, especially if you got it running. If you got it running, then I feel like it would have been amazingly useful. Very useful. Which goes up to Reshiram and Charizard. Arguably, well, not even arguably, the best fire type tag team we ever had. The best one, hands down. At the beginning, when it first came out, it was unrivaled. It was absolutely unrivaled. It rocked the whole entire format. I think all the way until Cosmic Eclipse, because even when Unified Minds came out, it was still on par as being the best deck we had at the time. Because like I said before, Welder would just pay it immediately. One Welder, one attachment would get you GX attack, 200 damage. You could basically take out anyone that you wanted at that point, especially if you went second, first turn going second. 230 damage every other turn was insane. So the way you do it is you do Flare Strike, then Outrage, because you just tank and attack afterwards. So eventually you just be doing more damage over time with less energy, which was insane. Obviously as time has gone by, Reshiram and Charizard got used less. I think something like Inteleon VMAX really shut it down a little bit, because that would just waste off 3 prizes. But at the time, for a very long time, it was brutal. Even something like Keldeo GX back when Cosmic Eclipse came, because beforehand that was the GX counter. That was the counter for many decks. ADP Keldeo was a very good deck to have before we had V Pokemon. But yeah, Reshiram and Charizard, I can't complain. It was amazing. It was an amazing card. They are an amazing tag team. It's a shame that they got used less and less as time went by, because they were so good. But yeah, it's going to be a shame to see them go. But they've done very well. They can hold their heads up high and say that they have been one of the best decks that we've ever got. Next up is Volcanion, another good fire tech to have. Mainly everyone used it in fire decks to get quick energy on their first turn going second. And it was also quite a decent attacker, 110 for 2 energy if you had 4 or more energy in play, which was actually kind of decent. You could knock out things like Decidueye, which would give a lot of players trouble. You had actually quite a good space with Volcanion, a good 2-hit, 1-hit attacker if you're hitting for weakness. I couldn't complain. Volcanion was actually pretty decent. I felt like he was pretty good. We go to Chandelor. Chandelor came out in Unified Minds. Chandelor was a very tricky deck to work with. I think it won, I'm not sure if it won 1 or 2 tournaments, I'm not sure, but it did very well. It was a good mid-tier / high-tier card. Fantastic. Literally, you would evolve it from Lampen, and then Duststone would get you Chandelor immediately. 1 fire energy, and you just threw on a whole bunch of evolution fire type Pokemon and just went completely off afterwards. It was fantastic. It had such good combinations. It was just great. I loved Chandelor. Not so much playing it against it, but seeing what it can do, I love Chandelor. I love Chandelor as a Pokemon. As a deck, it was annoying, but it was the good kind of annoying, where it was actually a challenge and not stupidly overpowered. But yeah, Chandelor was awesome while it lasted. Charizard, which came out in Team Up. Charizard, again, was just a completely brutal deck. It took care of itself. You could do a whole bunch with it. For a Charizard like this, we got new cards like Heat Fire Energy, which made it a bit better. But obviously, because Stage 2, I would probably argue and say Vivid Voltage Charizard would be a lot better. Higher HP, can hit higher damage quicker. So obviously it just got outplayed by more Charizards as time went by, because I think we got actually a lot of Charizards as time went by. We got like 3 different Charizards at that point. But yeah, we got a lot. But anyways, I feel like Team Up Charizard was just completely brutal at one point. It was so brutal. I think it was one of my most annoying decks to come up against. It actually held it held a pretty high place in one of the most annoying decks for me when it first came out. But it was good. It was good anyway. I can't complain. It was good for a reason. It was annoying for a reason. But yeah, Charizard, I didn't mind it. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys don't mind it either. It was pretty cool. Rowlet and Alolan Executor. Oh gosh, grass types are going to have such a mission after rotation. Oh my gosh, right. Rowlet and Executor came out in Unified Minds, and it's arguably the best grass type we have right now. Until rotation happens, it is the best grass type we have. Super Growth for absolutely 0 energy whatsoever can evolve any single grass type Pokemon from their start to their finish evolution, which means you could get in your first turn something like a Grookey, which was probably the main deck for this right now, and evolve it all the way up to Rillaboom, and then next turn you would just do Rillaboom's ability to get extra energy up. It was completely busted. It's so brutal. It's absolutely brutal. If you ever have a grass deck, I would probably say try your hardest to find Rowlet and Alolan Executor if you can. But my god, it was so brutal. But yeah, grass types are gonna have a bit of a challenge after rotation happens. It's gonna be very difficult for grass type decks. Next up is, oh my gosh, Dedenne. Oh, Dedenne. We can't say the catchphrase anymore. Oh, until it happens. I know we're going to play a few decks with Dedenne beforehand, but this is going to be probably one of the biggest times we're going to say it. So guys, say it with me. Everyone knows what Dedenne does by now. When you get Dedenne, put it on the bench, discard your hand, draw 6. We love Dedenne. Dedenne is great. We love Dedenne. Oh, I just love saying that. It's been kind of one of the taglines for the channel for a while now, actually, and I'm so sad to see Dedenne go. It's an amazing Pokemon. It's such an amazing draw card. I think it's probably the best draw card we have, besides Crobat. But obviously, when rotation happens, Crobat will probably be our best one in terms of draw Pokemon. We might get someone new as time goes by. It's not unheard of that we get repeated abilities, so it's probably going to be another Pokemon, probably a cutesy Pokemon as well, because I think the last Pokemon we got close to that was Shaman, but I think Shaman's more closer to Crobat. So if we ever got someone else, it'd probably be, I don't know, maybe another Pikachu clone, maybe something like a Mulga. I would say a Mulga, or if anything, Morpeko. That's probably, I'm saying it now as the date of this video comes out. I'm probably saying if we ever get a Pokemon that has the same ability as Dedenne, I'm calling it that it's either going to be a Mulga or Morpeko, because those two are the only ones that I can think of that would have any form of chance having the same ability. But Dedenne is great. We love Dedenne, and I'm so sad to see Dedenne go. Pikachu and Zekrom, the one that started the tag teams, the card that was basically the mascot of tag team cards. It's the mascot Pokemon of Team Up. It is the mascot Pokemon of tag team cards in general. It was the first one we ever saw like this, and it is such a shame to see it go. I wish we had more time with Pikachu and Zekrom. It's good, and it's only somehow got better. Even though we've lost a lot of lightning type cards like Electro Power and Thunder Mountain, it's still seen as one of the best cards that we have. Like, par none. Like, it's so weird. It's weird to think that a deck that got damaged so much by its last rotation is still seen as a really good candidate for one of the best decks we have. Most times now you'd see it with something like Mewtwo and Mew. I think that was the last version of Pikarom that we saw winning a tournament, which was fantastic. And why would you not? It's such an amazing card. 3 Lightning Energy, 150, and you attach 3 Lightning Energy cards to any one of your Pokemon. Again, you'd use something like Bolton to charge this up quicker on your first turn going second. You would tech this in with something like, well, it wouldn't be a tech, it'd be a deck on its own. You'd use a lot of techs like Raichu, Alolan Raichu. You know, you could use things like Pikachu V Max that love using this card. Any card that loves electric energy, by far one of the best, if not the best tag team. It was so good. We're gonna miss Pikachu and Zekrom, and I'm probably gonna use Pikachu and Zekrom a lot before it rotates. Speaking of Raichu, Alolan Raichu, they come up as the next one. This has been probably the best lightning tech that we've had for a very, very long time, actually. Best lightning attacking tech, because it just does 160 in paralysis if you manage to switch it up, something that's really not hard to do. I feel like this is pretty cool. It did a fair bit of damage. It does a fair bit of stalling technique with paralysis. It's a decent card. It's not obviously the best that we've had, but Raichu Alolan Raichu is just awesome. I love Raichu. Raichu is probably one of my favorite Pokemon. I just absolutely love Raichu, and it's so nice to see a card like this. Tapu Koko Prism Star, the last Pokemon Prism Star that we have. I know there's Shaman Prism Star, but no one cares about Shaman Prism Star. It's all about Tapu Koko Prism Star, the last Prism Star we have. And why would you not like it? It's fantastic. It's just been such a staple in electric decks. Every electric deck would have Tapu Koko. I don't see why you would not have Tapu Koko in any electric deck. That is insane. If you manage to get far with Tapu Koko without Tapu Koko Prism Star in any electric deck, you gotta tell me your secret, because that is crazy. It attaches 2 energy, 1 lightning energy each to 2 of your bench Pokemon, and puts itself in the lost zone. Opens itself up for bench space, recycles energy. It's great. Tapu Koko is just fantastic. I don't see why you wouldn't have Tapu Koko on your team. Next up was Zapdos. Reason why I put up Zapdos in this was because it was a good card when it came out. It was the tech before Raichu Alolan Raichu, but obviously as time went by, when we got Raichu Alolan Raichu, Zapdos kind of fell off, because obviously Raichu Alolan Raichu is just way better. It hits harder, does better damage, does better conditioning. He actually hits for weakness, because Zapdos doesn't hit for weakness somehow. But yeah, but I'm just giving it a mention because at the time of Zapdos' release, it was fantastic. It was so good. Right, Magneton from Cosmic Eclipse. Again, the reason why I put Magneton is because it was a decent card. There were certain decks that we put with Magneton that made him work very well. The biggest one being, gosh, the most iconic one I would say is probably Psyduck and Slowpoke. Wasn't the best deck to run, but it was fairly decent. I would say it was fairly decent. I think Magneton was a fairly decent card, actually. It felt like it was pretty cool. Normally you'd use Magneton to get Lieutenant Surge and then 2 extra supporters for Lieutenant Surge to work with. Either Boss's Orders or a switch card, or like Mallow and Lana, or, you know, cards to get draw, or anything like that. Magneton I feel like was a decent tech to have in, but it was very limited in what decks you could put it in with without being too much, I would say. But yeah, Magneton was pretty cool. We like Magneton. Magneton was pretty cool. Jirachi from Team Up. Again, another card that you see almost everywhere. Looks at the top 5 cards of your deck, find a trainer card, and it goes to sleep. Back when we had a skateboard, this would be the card to get any form of card you wanted. Almost any form of card you wanted. Jirachi with a skateboard was the one. Obviously, when we lost the skateboard, wasn't the best, but people still use it because we have Scoop Up Net, which I can't lie is actually a pretty good combination. Better combination than what we predicted. But yeah, other than that, Jirachi, it's been good, but it's gone down in play as time has gone by. Lucario Melmetal, metal decks are going to have such a bad time. Tanky metal decks are going to have such a bad time. Lucario Melmetal prevented damage from any metal type Pokemon that you had. It was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. Again, you would take this in with something like Zacian. Zacian would just have a chunkier amount of HP, and especially if you worked with healing, you would basically have an undefeatable tank at your disposal. It was great. Lucario Melmetal was fantastic, especially in terms of defense. It was great. I love Lucario Melmetal. It was just, I can't get over it. It's just so good. It was so good. We have Mawile, again, another tech in ADP Zacian decks. It was, I'm just giving it an honorable mention because it was obviously part of one of the best decks that we've seen in a very long time. So it gets an honorable mention. So yeah, Mawile, not really much to say, but it was a decent tech. Gengar and Mimikyu, my boys, my spooky boys. I love them so. I really wanted to make a deck on Gengar and Mimikyu in real life, but I never got the cards in time. I only have like 2, but I needed 3 because I wanted to make a guaranteed Gengar and Mimikyu deck and not a risky one. But it was great. You take something like this in Mewtwo Mew, or even play it by itself, and you could. There were times where you could even win turn 2. There was a lot of instances where you could literally just play Horror House, your opponent be stuck, attach an energy, and you'd win. You'd literally win by turn 2. It was fantastic. It was just an absolutely brutal card to have. It's fantastic. Again, another deck that I think I'm going to use very well, especially since Eternatus isn't getting used as much anymore because we have the both of the Urshifu now. So I think I'm definitely going to start using Gengar and Mimikyu a lot more. Jirachi, the reason why I'm putting up Jirachi is because it's seen kind of a new light now. Beforehand, it would be teched in with things like Mewtwo and Mew, because the only card that could take on Mewtwo and Mew properly was Mewtwo and Mew. Then we had the Sword and Shield era, where all Psychic type Pokemon was either weak to Darkness or weak to Steel, because Fairy types transferred over to Psychic types. So Jirachi didn't get used as much afterwards, but now you're seeing it in techs of Urshifu decks, because Urshifu is still weak to Psychic. So obviously it takes off Psychic weakness. So we're giving it a mention because now in this new set that we got recently, Battle Styles, the two main poster Pokemon are weak to Psychic, and a lot of decks have used Jirachi, at least one if not two in their decks. So yeah, Jirachi gets a good mention. Marshadow, because it gets rid of stadium cards, was a very, very good tech to have. I felt like it was just fantastic to use. I felt like it was just great. I felt like it was good. It was a good way to get rid of extra cards. Yeah, Marshadow was pretty decent actually, I can't lie. Mew, another tech to have. If you have a weak Pokemon deck, you could put Mew up on the bench, saves you from getting sniped. Was a good counter against things like Pikarom, like Cramorant. It's great. I don't mind Mew. Let's say Mimikyu for a second, but yeah, Mew is still a decent tech card to have if you're scared that your Pokemon might get sniped. It's pretty cool. I like Mew. Mew's kind of nice. Speaking of Mew, Mewtwo and Mew, arguably again one of the best tag teams we've ever gotten, because it literally mimics any GX that you want if you have the right energy. But yeah, Mewtwo and Mew, it's been used in a lot of decks. The main one being, Welder was great. It was fantastic. It rocked the format for a little while. It was brutal. It was one of the best decks that we had. It was tied in with ADP and Pikarom. And I guess Reshiram and Charizard as well. It's kind of weird. All the poster Pokemon of the tag team sets were arguably the best GX sets we've ever got, if not the best decks in general that we've had for a very, very long time. Which is kind of weird. That's actually very weird. The only one that seemed to have fell off is Reshiram and Charizard, but even they're still pretty decent. So that's actually pretty weird. But anyways, Mewtwo and Mew was amazing. I can't complain. They were awesome cards. They still are awesome cards. So I can't even say much else. They are fantastic. Oricorio, again, you see this card normally used in things like Mad Party or the Cephalon decks. It's just a nice way to get extra draw from weak Pokemon. So yeah, Oricorio is not much else to say. It's pretty cool. Wheezing, I personally put this up because I love Wheezing. I love Unbroken Bonds Wheezing. It was a fantastic card. Stacks up damage way faster than you think. Wheezing is it's just so good, dude. Wheezing is just fantastic. I love Wheezing. I absolutely love Wheezing. Blastoise and Piplup, another good water type deck to have. Reattaches energy, hits hard, heals when it reattaches. You could just have a very, very chunky armorish deck if you use Blastoise and Piplup. It was so brutal, especially if you're not hitting for weakness. It was basically impossible. Unless you're hitting an insane amount of damage or hitting for weakness, this deck is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Fiona, a nice little switch tech before we had things like Boss's Orders. When Guzma was getting shuffled out, we didn't really have much things in terms of gusting. We had, I think, what did we have? We had Great Catcher still. We had, I think, Pokemon Catcher for a while. We had, God, what else did we have? We had one other thing, but I can't remember for the life of me what it was. But other than that, we had Fiona, which was a good way. Only downside was that your opponent chose what Pokemon came out. But other than that, I feel like Fiona was pretty cool. Now we move on to the trainer cards, and the first one that we've got up is Cherish Ball. Cherish Ball was pretty decent. Got out GXs very, very quickly. Normally you'd use it for things like draw, like Dedenne, or you'd use it for your main attacker like ADP, Reshiram Charizard, Pikarom, etc., etc. It was a good way to get things rolling. Chip Ice Axe, a nice stalling card. It was just great to the point where I think it's got, what is it, banned and expanded? Yes, it's banned and expanded now. Oh gosh. But yes, very, very good card. But obviously now that it's banned and expanded, it's pretty much just going to be a useless card now when rotation happens. So that's a shame. Energy Spinner, arguably the best energy search that we have. When you go second, you search up 3 basic energy instead of 1 and put it into your hand. Now we've just, when Energy Spinner goes, the best form of energy search we have is just Energy Finder or is it Energy Search or Energy Finder, or it's something close to that, which is literally just find one energy. Doesn't matter what turn you have, doesn't matter when you play the card, you just find only one energy, which makes things super suckish. Energy Spinner needs to come back at some point because it is such a good card. It needs to come back eventually. Fire Crystal, Fire Dex, again, I'm just going to go through so much pain when rotation happens. I think last time, what did we have last time that was so much damage for Pokemon? I think electric types. Yeah, because electric types, we lost Thunder Mountain and Electro Power, Zero Aura, all that type of stuff. So Fire Dex seem to be getting the bad end of the deal this time. Because again, we've lost Volcania for Energy Surge, we're losing Fire Crystal now. We're losing a bit. We are losing a fat bit. Great Catcher was a nice card to have. It saved you a supporter from something like Boss's Orders. So yeah, it was pretty cool. You discard you discard 2 cards from your hand, get a GX and put it to the active. It was a nice way to snipe out things like Dedenne, or even Oricorio, any weak GX Pokemon that you can find, or just find out a Pokemon that you've done damage with over time. It was decent. It was a decent card. It's a shame to see it go. Pokegear, I feel like was a shame to lose. Unfortunately, we're going to lose it very soon. Came out in Unbroken Bonds. It's not used everywhere, but I like using it personally. I feel like a lot of people actually like using it. It's just a way to try and guarantee your chances of finding a supporter card, because support cards are just always important. So yeah, so I feel like that's a pretty cool card to have, and unfortunately we're going to lose it very soon. Again, communications, much like Pokegear, not used by everyone, but the ones who do use it really love it. I'm also one of those people that love using Pokemon communications. Just a nice way to guarantee the Pokemon that you want. Reset Stamp, again, a very brutal card that we're going to lose. Came out in Unified Mind, and I think it's also banned and expanded, which means once rotation happens, Reset Stamp is just going to be a very useless card. Tag Call, which I think is also Tag Switch as well. So both of the tag cards, the main tag item cards that we've used, one to get tag team cards and the other to swap energy from tag teams to another. Tag Switch I think is going to be more of an L to take, because obviously it's energy. You love to use energy, but yeah, unfortunately we're going to use both of these, which doesn't do well. Black Market Prism Star, so Dark type Pokemon. I almost said Black Pokemon. Oh my gosh. So Dark type Pokemon are going to be knocked out and not lose a prize, and not lose one less prize, which is a shame, because this is actually a very good tech for Dark type Pokemon. I feel like this is just fantastic. I feel like it should, like Tapu Koko, should be teched in every single deck that needs a certain type of Pokemon. So I feel like this should just be used as much as possible. Chaotic Swell came out in Cosmic Eclipse. Arguably one of the most disruptive stadiums we've ever had. It's absolutely brutal, absolutely destructive. Basically no one can put up a stadium. If Chaotic Swell is there, you're basically deadlocked with no stadium, to the point where you either waste the stadium putting it on, or you just leave it there for the rest of the game and you can't do anything about it, which is actually kind of brutal if you think about it. Dark City, again, Dark type Pokemon are just taking a fat L from this rotation as well. Basic Dark type Pokemon have no retreat. This would be good for something like Umbreon and Darkrai, Tyranitar and Sableye, for example. Also, they are also getting rotated, but the reason I didn't put them on is because they're not used as much as Umbreon and Darkrai or other Dark type Pokemon. So again, this is only for like Pokemon that made like a big impact in some form in TCG. Giant Hearth, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Firedex. Oh, Firedex, you are really gonna go through a struggle. Oh my lord. Oh gosh, yeah, discard a card from your hand, get 2 fire energy. God, Firedex are gonna be so trash. Unless there's a way to make Firedex popular again, there's no way after rotation anyone is going to use a fire deck. There is no way. You're losing all forms of your energy surge and your energy attachments. There's no way. Martial Arts Dojo. So a bit of an L for fighting type Pokemon, but anyone can use this card if they use fighting type energy. Sorry. So you get 10 extra damage, but if you're behind on prizes, you do 40 extra, which is fine. It's a nice way to come back from, little prize losses. So I feel like it's kind of cool. Obviously, it techs in with fighting type Pokemon because you're most likely going to use basic fighting type energy if you use fighting type Pokemon. But I wouldn't say it's one of the best stadiums that we've had. It's kind of lackluster. We use other cards in fighting type decks as well, so meh. Power Plant was another stadium that we had that was actually pretty cool. Came out in Unbroken Bonds and just basically shut down GXs. It shut down every GX that had an ability. So Weavile would have trouble, Dedenne would have trouble, things like Keldeo would have trouble. Anything that was brutal, anything that could have done any form of damage was just shut down. And especially when Mewtwo and Mew came out, Power Plant was literally the stadium that you had to have, even at least one copy of it, just to shut down Mewtwo and Mew. Also, speaking of Keldeo, I think I forgot to put Keldeo up here, but yes, Keldeo is also going. It's again pretty cool card. It was a main deck with ADP for a while, but obviously fell off very, very quickly in the set after it came out. So I didn't really feel like it needed to be put up as much because it just kind of fell off almost immediately. Viridian Forest, another way to get draw search. This worked well with cards, you know, that needed to get energy quickly. You'd mainly seen this in lightning decks, because then you would discard a lightning energy from your hand, get another one, then Tapu Koko could reattach. So you'd essentially get 2 energy for the price of 1. You'd see this in water decks, because there's not really a good water search for a while until we had Capacious Bucket. Steel type decks would use this a lot until we got Metal Saucer. You'd use this for a lot of really, really cool decks. It was pretty cool. Wondrous Ladder and Prism Star still gets seen from time to time, mainly for stall tactics, because obviously we don't have fairy type Pokemon anymore, not any good ones anyway. So it was mainly used for stall tactics, mainly decks that could get energy very, very quickly to the point where Wondrous Labyrinth didn't really matter to them. For example, something like Pikarom wouldn't really care because you could get energy up quickly. Things like, you know, Welder decks wouldn't really care as much because Welder would get you fire energy up quicker. It didn't really matter for Wondrous Labyrinth decks that actually used it. Green's Exploration I feel like was pretty cool. A lot of people tech this in with Reshiram Charizard to basically get any card that they wanted, which was great. Mallow and Lana, again, a very, very good card to have. Switches over, heals damage. Again, just absolutely fantastic card to use. Ah, here we go. I think this was probably the biggest hit in the chest when I found out that this was going to get rotated. Welder, we are going to lose when rotation happens. We are going to lose Welder by rotation. Fire decks, I am so sorry, but you are going to be absolutely useless. Absolutely useless when rotation happens. I've got no other words to say. God, fire decks are going to be so bad. They're going to be so, so bad. Unless we get Welder back, or some form of it in the form of a Pokemon or another supporter, fire decks are basically going to fall off the map very, very fast. The only fire deck you could probably use after this is Center Scorch, and that's it. That's literally it. But Welder, it's such a shame. You've been so much fun to use, but unfortunately, at some point you're going to go. Buff Padding came up in Team Up as well. Very good for chunky Pokemon. We saw this a lot with, pretty much any 4 energy retreat cost Pokemon. So you can kind of pretty much take this in anyway if you're using a proper bulky Pokemon. Now we move on to the energy. Finally, the last section of this whole rotation. Sorry guys, I know it's been a long trip, but I tried to make it as fast as I possibly could. And there's not many energy that we're losing, but a lot of them are going to be a bit of a shock. So Triple Acceleration Energy is the first one that we're losing. I think this one's probably the main one that we're going to lose, because Triple Acceleration Energy has been fantastic for a very, very long time. Any evolution Pokemon that you have, Triple Excel is just fantastic. I can't even lie. It's been great. It's a great card. It's a great energy to use. Draw Energy. I put this in because, again, you'd see this once or twice in a few decks. So, yeah, it's not been too bad. You could use it for, you know, cards that doesn't really revolve around draw as much, or if you need backup draw. Draw Energy's just got your back. Recycle Energy, probably the second place energy that we're losing, just behind Triple Excel. You could basically use this card forever. Every time it gets discarded, you just bring it back. Every time, you know, your Pokemon gets knocked out, instead of going this card, you bring it back. There is no way you get rid of it unless you yourself get rid of it from your hand from something like, I don't know, Professor's Research or Dedenne or something like that. There was no other way you could get rid of Recycle. It's almost impossible to get rid of this card. And then finally, Weakness Guard Energy. Probably the only other... Well, I think this is the only other special energy we have left that's in this rotation. So, unfortunately, Weakness Guard Energy we're losing. Not many Pokemon have used this card, because it's a colorless energy, so no one's really used it, but it gets rid of your weaknesses. Other than that, we've kind of just found techs to kind of keep decks going, or to counter weaknesses. Other than that, there's not really much else you could say. It's not as big of a loss because you have something like Chandelor, which gets rid of weaknesses if you have energy attached anyway. Maybe some people might tech that in a bit more when rotation happens. Maybe. But weakness hasn't really been something that everyone's been afraid of, more or less because everyone kind of uses the same kind of typings, really. But other than that, everyone's just kind of took weakness to the chest and kind of just pushed on. But that's it for this little, let's say, info session, let's say. If I've missed any specific cards, let me know. If there's any cards that you don't really don't mind leaving, let me know. If you guys are upset about certain cards leaving, again, let's talk about it. It's been such a wild ride. The tag team era is finishing very, very soon. God, it's been such a wild ride. But I think out of everything, the two that I'm gonna get upset about the most leaving is gonna be Pikarom and Dedenne. I actually spent so long making a Pikarom deck, and because of the whole quarantine situation, I never had a chance to use it the best that I could. I never had a chance to use it since tournaments are shut down and stuff. Never had the chance. So unfortunately, it's been a wild ride. But I think out of all this rotation, those two cards I'm gonna be upset about the most. But unfortunately, that's how we got it. We've got a bunch of decks anyway that happen post rotation. We've got a lot of decks that are still good. We've got a lot of cards that are still good. So yeah, so roll on the rotation. I'm not exactly sure when the rotation's happening. I think it's happening in August. Around August, September-ish is when it normally happens. So if we get lucky, we can kind of find out very, very soon. Again, like I said in the beginning, if we get any information on what the actual rotation is going to be, I will update you guys immediately. We'll make a change of the list. We'll probably have to add some, we'll take some away. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching this little thing. Again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But yeah, anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed, always leave a like and always click on the video. Guys, always welcome back, and I'll see you all in the next video. Alright, guys, take care, and I'll see you all later. Okay, bye!